if there wasn't such a thing as choiceless awareness, it would be impossible, because you would just live the behavior of the personality, and that would be your only reality. And that's how it is for a lot of people, most people. So with the interjection of choiceless awareness, a whole another world opens up. And that world includes being able to see the activity of the personality. Not everything immediately, maybe it's the top layer of it, and then, but you talked about kind of increments, sometimes it's like that. But that suddenly becomes possible. Ronnie, you shared with me an example of that this morning.
It felt like I saw myself for the first time. Because I don't know, I felt like I had created, like I was living this life thinking that that's what I wanted, but I hadn't really looked at myself in the mirror. That's how it felt like. It felt like I saw myself for the first time. It's difficult to explain because it's like, you go through life thinking this is you, but then all of a sudden this is realization it's not. And it's funny because I was 34, 35 when that happened. But then you look back and be like, was that a different person? Now that I'm with you all and I'm talking about this, I'm questioning it myself. Like, was that an imposter? Was it a different person? Was it a different me? Like, I can't relate to that person anymore, but it is very much part of me. And I don't regret anything that I went through, because had I not gone through those experiences, I wouldn't also be in this situation.
When I transcribed your reading last week, Jez, it's so relevant to all of this today. And that is, I'll just read a sentence or two. Without inquiring into your personality and seeing through its story, you will not grow. You will simply repeat and live out its cycles over and over again. So it's like, you answered choiceless awareness, but along with that comes inquiry into, this. But
yeah, the inquiry is what the choiceless awareness allows to happen, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more than the seeing. It's like an active inquiry, right?
Yeah. Without choiceless awareness, none of it wouldn't be meeting. None of this would be happening. It's the core. Yeah, without it, you just live the personality. Yeah. So it's an absolute mysterious, magical thing that changes everything. And your story, Ronnie, just epitomizes it so beautifully. There is something that can step outside the thing that's being lived and say, look, as if, the way you talked about it was a bit like someone else came in the room and said, look, can you see how unkind you're being and hateful to yourself? And that's the view from outside the personality. Yeah. It's an amazing thing. Nobody taught us about this. Nobody taught me about it.
And Jess, I just have to add to that, what you did for me in my last meeting with you last week was to see that as real as the rest of the stuff. I mean, that's as important and as real, even though it's a small segment of it. That's as real as the baggage of the personality that we're carrying around. And we forget to highlight that,
Yeah, well, I want to say it's more real.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah.
Just to add this, I suppose consciously real. I don't know.
Say a bit more, Cindy, what you mean.
Well, it just a lot of times those glimpses come, but they don't like come into your consciousness. They just come, they're fleeting, they're gone.
Yeah, so you mean they can come up, but it's almost like you don't accept them, or personality kind of distracts you, so you don't. Yeah, this is almost like a
Exactly.
training of yourself to acclimatize yourself. A, that choiceless awareness is a real thing. B, that you want it, and therefore your senses are attuned to hearing it. And then when you do hear it, you trust it more than all the crap that the personality tells you. So yeah. But you're right. So it's a sort of retuning to that. So it's like we're listening to this radio station at this frequency, and you're retuning to this higher frequency. I mean, it is, in a sense, it's finer, right? It's finer. The personality frequency is more gross. And this is because it's tuned to emotion and to the relative and suffering, personality suffering, and the mind. But tuning to the choiceless awareness, it has no walls. It's got no roof to it. It's endless. So it's free in that sense. It's free. Yeah. So it's tuning to that higher frequency. It sounds a bit spiritual saying that, but you know what I mean. It's a finer frequency. I'm trying not to be spiritual. You know what I mean.
Well, it's so subtle, and it's like the intuition that Ronnie brought up, it's your intuition gets involved in it, and that's where the knowing comes in, and that's where it gets more highlighted in your life, rather than beliefs that seems sometimes can have a damper on them somehow. But
Yeah.
the more you're tuned in, the more you feel that difference. I can't believe I'm saying that.
Yeah. And of course, there's all this resistance from the personality. The more you start tuning away from it, and it will try and like block your receiving of that frequency, because it doesn't want you to go to it. Yeah. So the resistance is, and it'll find very, very logical, good sounding, reasonable reasons not to listen to it, won't it? So yeah, the whole thing is your ability, powered by the yearning, to give yourself to that listening to choiceless awareness and the trusting of it, and wherever it leads. And that is the path to your freedom. And your freedom is away from the frequency of personality, to continue that theme. Because the personality, I mean, it's not free. That's the bottom line. It's not free. The personality is the tram lines of beliefs and thoughts and conditioning and emotions that go round and round. So that in that sense, it's not free, because it's a repetition of patterns. There's a wall to it. It doesn't open up to infinity, whereas what we're talking about is infinity. But it comes with this, to the personality, scary bit of like, well, I can't let go. I can't go towards that, because then I'll lose everything that I thought was my safety. So that's the kind of trade-off. That's the thing, that the scales, if it works, just start tipping to another side. And then it gains momentum, because the more you start trusting it, the more it proves itself to be true. And then you're caught in its net. Then there's no going back. Whatever it takes, whatever it demands of you in your life. Yeah.